down, all the way down, actually. Still scrolling, not gaming, not even talking to friends. Just scrolling. When I asked how long she'd been up, she generally didn't know. Not lying, just no idea. Time had actually disappeared on her.
Hmm.
And that's the part that got me. It wasn't defiance, it was more like she'd been pulled somewhere and couldn't quite find her way back out. So today, what does screen addiction actually look like in a kid's brain? And what do you want to do or what can you do about it? Isn't just take the phone away and hope for the best. Welcome to back to the Parent Support Podcast. I'm Curtis.
And I'm RJ. And I want to say up front, addiction is a strong word, but
Yep.
here I think it's the right word, even though it might make some parents flinch just a little bit.
Yeah, for sure, RJ. So why is that the right word instead of just too much screen time?
Because the mechanism really is closer to addiction than to habit, right? We're going to get into the why and then what actually helps because confiscation alone, in my experience, makes it worse, not better. Look, I'm an addict, you know what I mean? So I understand exactly how close this is to an actual addiction.
Right on, RJ. Well, hopefully your expert will come out here and people learn. That's going to be a surprise to some people.
Yeah, it surprises me too, but the first time I tried it and then watched it backfire, right?
Right. All right. So why are screens generally addictive? Well, let's find out. With the mechanism, why is it different from saying being really into a hobby? What's the difference? Would you say,
Mhm.
RJ?
Well, literally, the apps are engineers, right? By people whose job is this to
Yep.
exploit the brain's reward system, right?
Yep.
Variable rewards specifically. You don't know if the next scroll brings something boring or something great. And that's unpredictability, which is keeps the brain checking, right?
Yep.
It's the same mechanism slot machines use.
Oh, interesting. So it's not that kids have a weak willpower at all.
No, not even a little, right? Um, Adults fall for the same mechanism, and that's why. So this show, we can relate. Okay, we're trying to, teach you how to protect your kids from this addiction.
Yep.
But even parents, look, we're addicted to this unit too, right?
Yep.
So we just have more practice pretending that we don't. The apps are winning against billion-dollar engineering teams whose entire job is capturing our attention. That's
Yep.
not a fair fight for a fully developed adult brain, let alone even an underdeveloped one.
Yeah, and the developing part matters specifically nowadays, right?
Yeah. Kids' prefrontal cortex, the part that handles the impulse control and long-term thinking, right? It isn't finished developing into till the mid 20s.
Oh
So the
wow.
part of the brain that would normally say, okay, that's enough, is still under construction for, just a term, The
Yep.
app's pulling on a lever that isn't fully wired to resist yet.
Right on, RJ. That reframes so much for me. I used to get generally frustrated with London for not just stopping like it was a simple choice she was
Mhm,
refusing to make, you know?
mhm. Yeah, it feels like a simple choice, right, from the outside, but it isn't one biologically in the moment. That doesn't mean there's nothing you can do. It means the solution has to work with the biology instead of assuming a level of self-control that isn't fully online yet.
Right on, RJ. So Les, why can't why can't you just stop and more? How do we build the stopping mechanism together?
Absolutely, Curtis. That's the whole shift right there.
Right on. So let's talk about why just talking on the phone or just taking the phone away doesn't solve it.
First, a few reasons. First, it treats the symptom, not the cause, right? The moment the phone comes back, the same pull is right there waiting because nothing about the underlying pattern ever changed. Second, and this one is a big one, it removes the kid's chance to build the actual skill or the muscles you want them to have with regard to self, which could be self-regulation,
Right.
right? And if you're always the external brake, they never develop their own brake.
Right. So total removal isn't actually counterproductive long term. And even if it feels effective at the moment, right?
Mhm, yeah, and it feels effective for about a day, right? Then you either have a screaming fight when the phone eventually comes back, or you've just delayed the exact same problem to whenever they get their phone with less supervision, right? College, moving out, whatever. You haven't built the skill, you've just postponed the test.
Right. So there's also the relationship cost, right? I've heard listeners who say confiscation turned into this constant adversarial thing.
Yeah, huge cost. It turns you into their enemy, right? And you've taken away the thing they want the most, and it turns every interaction about screens into a power struggle instead of a collaboration, right? You want your kids to be partners in solving this, not that you don't want to be their jailer.
Right on. Okay, so what's the alternative then? What can you actually do, RJ?
Three things make a real difference for us.
Right.
One, name the mechanism to your kid directly. Explain in an age appropriate way that the app is designed to be hard to put down. And
Yeah.
that's not a personal failing. It's just that's how it was designed.
Mhm.
And then kids respond really differently to this is engineered against you than to you have no self control.
Right. That reframes it as them versus the app, not them versus you, right?
Exactly, exactly. So 2, build in friction instead of prohibition, right? Grayscale mode, notifications off, the app moved off the home screen. Small obstacles that interrupt the automatic reach without removing the option entirely, right? Friction works because addiction thrives on ease and automaticness. Even a few extra taps breaks the spell more than you'd expect.
Huh, that is actually a pretty good idea, RJ. Once you break the pattern, because I know sometimes you're on the app and it's on your home screen, oh, push the button. But if you put it in the second screen, you got to move one more. So like, maybe I don't want to do it, right?
Yep.
That's pretty good. So what's the third one there, RJ?
So that one is replace.
Yep.
Don't just remove, right? If you're cutting the screen time, you need something else filling that slot. And that's a technique for anything you want to do. You want to change a habit, you need to replace it with another habit, right? So the vacuum just gets filled with boredom and resentment, or
Yeah.
boredom loses to the phone every time. Something they actually want to do needs to replace it. Not chores as a punishment, an actual alternative activity.
Oh, so like if they're going to outside, go and play the park or something like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Something productive, something that's going to energize them too.
Yeah. So something's basically free, and that's not too rigid. Maybe it's something the kid already enjoys doing, so it makes them like, okay, I got to do this now.
Yeah.
So be on the phone. Cool.
So and make sure this doesn't need to be too rigid either, right?
Right.
A video call with a friend is still a screen, right? But it's a completely different psychological experience than solo scrolling, right?
Right.
It's connective instead of extractive. The goal
Right.
isn't zero screens, it's shifting away from the specific mechanism that hooks, drains toward things that actually leave a kid feeling better afterwards instead of a little worse.
Right. That's the distinction. Extractive versus connective. It is really useful way to do stuff, right?
Yeah, it's a single most useful filter that I've found, right?
Cool.
Ask ask yourself, does my kid feel better or worse after this specific app? And you usually get your answer about what needs friction and what doesn't.
Right, cool. I like that, RJ. So basically you're gonna collaborate instead of dictating. So how do you actually bring this up with a kid without turning it into a lecture?
Um, Ask them what they've noticed about their own use, right? Kids are often more self-aware than we give them credit for. They'll tell you themselves that they feel worse after a long scroll session, right? Or that they meant to put it down an hour ago. So starting their own observation instead of your accusation changes the conversation.
Yep, that's right. And then what? You problem solve this together, right?
Together, absolutely. Ask what would actually help from their side, right? Sometimes it's a rule they
Mhm.
help set themselves. Kids follow self-imposed limits more than ones you impose on them, right? Almost every time. Sometimes it's something as simple as charging the phone outside of the bedroom overnight, which they'll
Yep,
often agree more easily than you'd think. And once they've named the 11:30 scroll problem themselves,
yep.
you're working together and they've recognized it, not you.
Good, good. That's awesome. So that collaborative framing is a big shift from how most of us would probably have defaultly doing it, right? Or
Yeah.
handling it.
Yeah, it's the big difference, right? Between a rule that gets tested and broken constantly versus one that actually holds because they had a hand in building it.
Right on. So, RJ, looking back, what would you do differently with Amanda on this? Would you say?
I'd stop treating every screen conversation as a crisis, right?
Yeah.
Look, our kids have learned how to use this technology. We often blame them for not living outside or always living in this box, but they've learned how to use it to manage their life, right? For a
Yeah.
stretch there, anytime I saw her on her phone too long, I'd escalate immediately, right? It would set me off. Big lecture, big consequence.
Wow.
Actually worked eventually was calming down myself and treating it as an ongoing project we were working on together instead of a battle I had to win every single night.
Right. That's pretty good there, RJ. So, how did that shift actually happen for you?
Honestly, it was her telling me pretty bluntly that she felt like a criminal every time I brought it up, right?
Oh, wow.
It stung, but truthfully, it was accurate, right? I was her interrogator, right?
Mm.
Once I dropped the crisis energy and started asking her what she'd noticed instead of announcing what I'd noticed, the whole dynamic changed, right? She started bringing it up herself sometimes. I've been on this too long today, right? Which never once happened during the lecture years.
Oh, wow. That's pretty interesting. That's a meaningful outcome. Her self motivation instead of you policing it, right?
Mhm. That was always the actual goal, right? It just took a long road to figure out the lecture wasn't going to get me there. I used to say all the time, and it was a hard lesson to learn. There's never a bad time for a good lecture.
Yep.
But yeah, I've learned the lecture is not always the way to go. And I'll say this too, it wasn't an instant process. There was still plenty of nights after the shift where the phone won and the agreement slipped, right? The difference wasn't that it became perfect. It's that it became a conversation we can keep having without either of us dreading it.
Oh, that's good. So that distinction between perfect and stable feels important for anyone listening who tries this once. And it doesn't magically fix everything overnight, obviously.
Yeah, it won't, and that's fine. It's okay, right? This isn't a switch that you flip. It's, a relationship that you're building with the problem together over months. Judge it by the trend, not by any single night. So I'm not sure if I've lost the signal, Curtis, or you. Okay.
Let's close it out for today. What would you summarize for parents out there for today's show?
Um, you've skipped quite a lot there.
Yeah, I know. I lost my thing off my phone, so I can't go back.
Got you. So what would I summarize?
Yeah.
You're working on this together, right? That's always the goal. It's always what we're teaching you here on this program. Don't get upset with them. You're not the police, but working together, you guys will find the solution and allow them as much of their own input as they can possibly handle.
Right on, RJ. That's pretty good. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and ring that bell for so next time we go live, you get a notification. And if you're watching on Facebook, leave us a comment, or if you have a question, or you want us to talk about something on the show, we'd love to hear from you. If you want to join the parent community group, just go to parentsupportcircle.com and you can join the group. And in the group, there's some free stuff in the classroom for you now. Go check it out. As always, thanks for being here, guys. RJ, any closing words from you?
Yeah, again, go to the parentsupportcircle.com. We've got lots of tools available for people. We've been working hard on, some resources. Curtis has been very diligent in putting together packages for people. And look, you are in this with your kids. It was the hardest lesson for me to learn that
Yeah.
when you start working with your kids, they'll work with you. So until next time, keep joining us here, keep taking these messages. Just take one thing from today's conversation and apply it. Watch what happens.
Thanks, guys, for being here. We'll talk to you there. Bye.
Next time.